Good afternoon, everyone, and thanks for joining us here today. I'm Carolina Alberna, CEO at the Brazil-Canada Chamber of Commerce based in Toronto, and on behalf of the organizers of the event, I would like to welcome you all to the second webinar of the Brazil-Canada Oil and Gas Partnership and Investment Forum, organized in partnership with Apex Brazil, the Consulate General of Canada in Rio de Janeiro and the Trade Commissioner Services, CGEF, the Canadian Global Exploration Forum, and ONIP, Organização Nacional da Indústria do Petróleo. We hosted the first session of this event back in April 26, where we provided an overview of the Brazilian oil and gas sector, showcasing the potential of the sedimentary basins, upcoming bidding rounds, and the permanent acreage offer regime, as well as the key legal aspects of doing business in Brazil. We also heard from a Canadian company, Alvo Petro, who is already active in the Brazilian oil and gas sector. So if you missed the first session, you could watch it on demand on the BCC website. Today, we'll hear from three E&P operators in Brazil, Porto do Açu, E&P, and PetroRecôncavo, who will present their current projects and opportunities for business development in Brazil, including case studies and successes in raising production levels in active field areas, and about new exploration areas, as well as their need for technology and innovation and the growing demand for goods and services in the Brazilian E&P sector. Brazil's oil and gas industry is recovering and it's projected to thrive for decades to come. With enormous unexplored areas onshore and offshore, and with Petrobras divesting all its onshore assets, E&P opportunities in Brazil are many. Before we start, just a few housekeeping rules. Speakers will be available to answer questions after their presentations. All questions should be asked through the Q&A box located in the bottom of your screen. We will do our best to address all points raised during the Q&A session at the end of the program. And if you would like to schedule one-on-one meetings with any of the presenters, please connect with me and during or after the event, and we will coordinate it accordingly. For those who are not familiar with the BCCC, we are a not-for-profit independent business organization led by the private sector with the main objective of fostering stronger commercial relations between Brazil and Canada. And for the past 48 years, we've been building relationships in investment, trade, best practices, and mutual growth and prosperity. As a membership-based association, we support our members by offering qualified information and insights, as well as a connectivity. Our connections are private and public, featuring government representatives from both countries, as well as managing directors and decision makers of companies from all sizes, associations, and institutions. We actively work on sectors such as mining, infrastructure, trade investment, energy, agriculture, and technology, with the focus to promote and demystify opportunities in Brazil for Canadian companies and vice versa. We also promote events and activities to discuss best practices and insights on diversity and inclusion and ESG. Through our committees, our members can contribute to discussions in specific sectors and subjects, speak at events, and participate in members-only exclusive roundtables, aiming to promote knowledge building and knowledge sharing among participating companies. If you want to learn more on how to get involved and join our community, please contact us. Before we introduce our speakers today, I'd like to thank the BCCC's annual sponsors, Vale Base Metals, Export Development Canada, Brookfield, Sescom Barrier, Lundin Mining, and the Toronto Stock Exchange and TSX Ventures for their support. And of course, our partners here today, Apex Brazil, Global Affairs Canada, ONIP, and CGEF. So without further ado, I would like to invite Nadine Lopes, Trade Commissioner for the Oil and Gas Sector at the Consulate General of Canada in Rio de Janeiro, to say a few words. Nadine, stage is yours.
Thank you, Carolina. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It's a pleasure to be here today, welcoming all of you and our keynote speakers. To those who don't know me yet, I'm Nadine Lopes, Trade Commissioner with Global Affairs Canada, based in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. I'm responsible for the oil and gas sector here in Rio, based in Rio, but covering the entire Brazilian territory. What we do here is we help Canadian companies explore, identify, and pursue opportunities. We can help them by identifying key partners, key players, potential customers. We're here to help you establish your business and understand the market. If you are interested in the oil and gas sector, look for us, get in touch, and we will be able to assess your market potential together. I hope you have a great webinar. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Nadine. The Trade Commissioner Service is a great asset for Canadian companies looking into Brazil. So get in touch with Nadine. She'll definitely be able to help you. Now I'd like to invite Carlos Padilha, Investment Officer at Apex Brazil, to say a few words.
Hi, everyone. I would like to start by greeting all the speakers and participants of this webinar, as well as our co-organizer of this event. I'm Carlos Padilha, Investment Officer at Apex Brazil, the Brazilian Trade and Investment Promotion Agency, and I'm in charge of the oil and gas sector here. It's our pleasure to have you here with us today in order to explore investment opportunities and potential partnerships between Brazilian and Canadian companies and investors of the oil and gas sector. In order to give you a brief overview of Apex Brazil, we are an agency linked to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, whose mission involves the promotion of Brazilian products and services abroad, the internalization of Brazilian companies, and the attraction of foreign investments to Brazil. Apart from our headquarters in Brasilia, we have 4 regional offices in Brazil, 9 overseas offices, besides working in close coordination with more than 200 diplomatic missions abroad and institutional partners like the ones co-organizing this webinar today. Regarding activities related to investment attraction, we offer free of charge services to support international investors, to analyze the opportunities to establish or expand units in Brazil, to start a partnership with a Brazilian company, or to commit capital in Brazil through funds and companies. Our services range from customized consulting, networking with public and private stakeholders, and site selection. Specifically in relation to the oil and gas sector, I would like to mention that Apex Brazil has developed a program called BPP, Brazilian Petroleum Partnership, which is aimed at facilitating partnerships between Brazilian companies and international corporations and investors for the development of businesses in Brazil. It's a quick and less risky way of entering the Brazilian market. In this program, we count with the help and knowledge of consultants who worked for more than 25 years at Petrobras. In the last 2 years, we gathered a group of over 50 qualified Brazilian companies conducting more than 70 matchmaking meetings with over 40 international companies that we're currently supporting worldwide. Today, we're having a unique opportunity to acknowledge success cases of Brazilian companies supported by Apex Brazil that are willing to find financial, operational, and technological partners for their expansion projects in Brazil. Porto do Açu, E&P, and PetroRecôncavo will show their path to success in Brazil. That may also be your path to approach a country that is one of the greatest frontier of opportunities in the energy sector in the world. As you may know, Brazil offers a diverse and balanced energy matrix in a continental country like Canada, and with a population of more than 210 million people. Associating your business to a successful Brazilian company is a great way to diversify your portfolio of projects internationally and to approach a market that's offering a wide range of business and investment opportunities, as we are publicizing in the series of webinars. Finally, before we watch the presentations, I would like to remind you that we may connect you with the speakers, and also please feel free and invited to contact us at Apex Brazil and join the BPP program. I will leave my email in the chat for your reference, and I would like to wish all of you lots of luck, and the keynote speakers good luck in their presentation. Invest with trust and safety, invest with Apex Brazil. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Padilha, for your words. And now I would like to invite Juliana Latari, Project Specialist at UNIP, to say a few words as well.
Hi all, good afternoon. I'll be super quick, just a few words. First of all, I would like to thank Apex, the Consulate, the Chamber, and CJEF to cooperate and organize this webinar, and of course the companies to share with us the opportunities and cases. Just a little explanation about UNIP. UNIP is the national organization of the petroleum industry in Brazil, and we put together the most different players in the sector, including oil companies, suppliers, government, and organizations to improve discussions. One of our goals is to maximize business investments and create new chances for Brazilian companies. So events like these are so important to us. We are always organizing events, business round, and webinars. We hope to do soon the next webinar of this series with Canada with focus on suppliers. So just to finish, if any company have any question or doubt about Brazilian market or about ONIP, we are open to help. So please feel free to contact us. I will put my contact in the chat next here in the webinar Zoom. And once again, thank you and have an amazing webinar.
Thank you, Juliana, for your words, Padilla and Agini for all the partnership, Juliana as well, and of course, Marty, that will be moderating our Q&A today. So our first presenter today is Mauro Andrade, Executive Director of Business Development at Portugal Logistics, who will be showcasing investment and partnership opportunities at the Porto do Açu, the largest port industry complex in Brazil. Mauro, thanks for joining us here today. Stage is yours.
Thank you, Carolina. Can you hear me well? Yes, I assume so. So I would like to thank the Brazil-Canada Chamber of Commerce, together with the Canadian Consulate, Apex Brazil and ONIP, for the invitation to speak and present Prumo and Prumo investment opportunities here in this forum. I will share my screen with you, and since I cannot see you, I will welcome if you let me know if the screen is okay. Mm-hmm. Okay, very good. I will spend a few minutes explaining to you what is Prumo is, and then showcase some of the investment opportunities at our companies. So Prumo is the holding company controlled by a private equity called EIG and by the Mubadala, the sovereign fund of the Emirates, that controls 6 subsidiaries, all of them located physically at Porto do Açu. So we have the Porto do Açu in itself, which has a JV with Port of Antwerp. We have Ferroport, which is a mining terminal in connection with Anglo-American. We have Açu Petroleum, which is the ship-to-ship terminal, and we have Oil Tanking as our partner. We have GNA, the gas-fired thermal plant with BP, Siemens, and the Chinese company SCPIC. We have a BP Prumo Venture, which is an NGO and bunking terminal, and DOMI, which is a partnership with Gran IHC, devoted to support the oil and gas operations and maintenance. So in a nutshell, Prumo is the holding company that controls directly or indirectly those 6 subsidiaries. We are located in the north of the state of Rio de Janeiro, within the reach of the southern region in Brazil, which is the main region in Brazil when it comes to GDP, close to the main oil and gas fields in Brazil. We are one of the few private ports in Brazil, certainly the only one with world-class infrastructure. And we have an amazing area, which is 9 square kilometers of industrial development to fill in, which is almost twice as much as Manhattan Island. So it's a big area, strategically located, and it is already a reality. Just to give you some numbers, last year we have handled 54 million tons of cargo combined of liquids, crude, iron ore, and other cargoes, which makes us the 3rd or the 4th biggest private port in Brazil already. I call your attention to a few numbers here. We have 10 terminals operating at the port, more than 12,000 port calls since the port was enabled back in 2014. There are 15 companies already installed in the industrial complex, and already 25% of the crude oil exports from Brazil are going through the terminal. So in a nutshell, Port of Açu is actually an oil hub, a mineral hub, logistics and services hub, industrial hub, and an energy and gas hub. We have also recently launched our concept of a green port, in which we're building a platform for sustainable business for the future. I will explain quickly to you, this is just one quick slide to show you the current port occupancy. As you can see, there's still a lot of area available. This gray area on the top of your slide, which is around 56 square kilometers, is pretty much empty, waiting to be fulfilled with industrial ventures. And we have an area at your right side, which is painted in green, which is a natural reserve. It's called the Caruara Reserve, which is a protected area, 40 square kilometers. It belongs to the port and will remain as a protected area, enabling our clients to do carbon compensation if they want. So this is some of the pictures to the ship-to-ship terminal. A lot of people doesn't get to know the magnitude of the terminal, so that's why we bring those pictures to see that this is already a reality. This is the picture of the gas-fired power plant. It will be starting generating energy to the grid within the next couple months. And if you allow me, I will just share with you the vision of Porto do Açu, which is anchored basically in 3 growth pillars. And this opens up our investment opportunities part of the presentation. So we, of course, want to expand based on our core capabilities, which is pretty much linked to the oil and gas industry. We also want to attract industries and consolidate service capabilities that can range from mining industry to transformational industries to fertilizers. And finally, the third and last pillar would be what we call the business of the future, which entails renewable value chain, hydrogen, chemical cluster, and low carbon ventures. I will choose maybe 1 or 2 projects that are ongoing or already under development in each one of these 3 growth pillars to illustrate to you our opportunities in the port. So within the first pillar of expanding the core capabilities, I would like to share with you 2 very important projects that are ongoing. The first one is a terminal expansion project with a tank park and 45 kilometers of oil pipelines linking Porto do Açu at the existing oil pipelines from Petrobras. This project is already licensed. The basic engineering is ready. This expansion is extremely strategic for the country and aim to meet the growing demands of the Brazilian oil export market. As I have shared with you, 25% of the transshipment in Brazil already occurs at the terminal, and we are actually taking the steps to make an investment decision in a tank park since Brazil has very few tanking and storage infrastructure. The capacity will be 5.7 million barrels in the first phase that can be increased to between 10 and 11 million barrels in a second phase. It's a $2.5 billion investment and is expected to create around 2,000 jobs in the north of Rio de Janeiro during the construction phase. We expect to operate this terminal by end of 23, beginning of 24. The second project that I want to share with you within this first pillar of growth is our power plant generation. We already have, as you saw in the picture, what we call GNA number 1. It's built, it's in the final stage of commissioning. It will generate energy to the grid very soon. We already have a second thermal plant with the PPA, with the power purchase agreement ready. So we have already contract for a second thermal power plant. These power plants are part of a huge park, thermoelectrical park to be constructed in Açu, with 6.4 gigawatts of energy already licensed. GNA 1 and GNA 2 alone will be 3 gigawatts. So we already have license to more than double the thermal power plant capacity at Açu. So the first GNA, the first thermal power plant, is 1.3 gigawatts, and the second will be 1.7 gigawatts. Connected to these 2 thermal plants, which are already a reality, we have an LNG terminal and an FSRU already in place, capable of regas up to 21 million cubic meters per day. So the 2 thermal plants will consume together, when they are dispatching at full power, around 11 or 12 million cubic meters. So we already have gas availability at Açu location today for those companies that want to install their business over there. I think this is, in a nutshell, the two main projects in our first growth pillar. This is a snapshot of the tanking terminal. As I said, end of 23, beginning of 24. It will link Açu port to the existing network of oil pipelines in Brazil. And the first phase will have the capacity of 5.5 million barrels of storage. This is a picture of our FSRU, the regas unit that we have at Porto do Açu. It's permanently based there. We have licensed, this unit has currently capacity of 21 million cubic meters per day of regas. We have licensed already at the site to regas up to 40 million cubic meters per day. One important aspect of it is that we are aiming to connect Açu with Cabiúnas terminal through a gas pipeline called Gazinf. This is a project that is going on. The licensing process of this project is already ongoing. We had 2 or 3 weeks ago the public hearing of the environmental license, so we are advancing fast with that. It's 100-kilometer gas pipelines linking Açu to Cabiúnas. So within Port of Açu, we will have both imported LNG and the possibility of bringing domestic gas to use the best arbitration on prices for our customers and clients. The second growth wave that we have at the Açu port is based in the commodities that we already have at the complex, which is oil, iron ore, gas, and renewable energy. And with the arrival of gas, many projects such as fertilizers, pellets, HBI production can be enabled there. In addition to that, we will have also the expansion of the logistics of the terminal. We already have a multi-cargo terminal, which is breaking records of movement month after month. We want to diversify this terminal. For example, we have recently received the first fertilizer cargo within this terminal. Rio de Janeiro, by the way, for those who are not aware, was the only state in the coast of Brazil that did not have a fertilizers terminal, which was a bit of a curiosity. We have started that front now. And another thing that I call your attention is that we are prepared to be one of the best terminals to support the offshore wind ventures when these projects are coming out of the paper in the future. We are in a fantastic location. The geographical area in front of the Açu port has a fantastic potential on wind. It's one of the 3 best areas in Brazil for offshore wind. And we believe that we are well positioned to serve this industry when the projects take the final investment decision. I will share with you just one thing about the building up on the existing capabilities as well. No doubt that the decommissioning industry is something that is going to be important in Brazil. And Açu port is located in front of the Campos Basin, which is the most mature offshore basin in Brazil, therefore the first to have units decommissioned. So we are already prepared to receive such decommissioning activities. I'm going to skip on this very quickly, but just to let you know that we have made, excuse me, we have made studies on pellet, on iron ore pelleting and HBI plants at Açu. On the pellet plants, we already have a business case study showing that the project is already profitable to be based in Açu, and we are in discussions with several partners to try to bring a pellet unit to the Açu port within the next couple of years. Last but not least, the third growth pillar, what we call the business of the future. I think this is here probably one of the most interesting ones. I've personally been spending a lot of time on this. We want to have the complete renewable value chain at Açu. I can share with you that we have already signed an MOU with Equinor to have a solar plant at Açu. And this MOU reaffirms the strategic partnership with Equinor, which is one of the global leaders in renewable and low carbon sources. We have also signed an MOU with Fortescue, an Australian company, the fourth biggest iron ore producer in the world, to build a hydrogen plant at Açu port. This plant would be a 300 megawatt plant, which is capable to generate 250 tons of hydrogen per year. And the route that we've chosen to produce out of the hydrogen is green ammonia, because green ammonia is a product that has already market in Asia and in Europe. This project is extremely ambitious. It will be the first of its kind in Brazil. We have until the end of August, beginning of September, to land on a conclusion if there's a feasibility on this project. We hope that we are going in the right direction now, but it's certainly something that will put not only Açu, but also Rio de Janeiro State and Brazil in the map of the future business in this domain. Once you have the hydrogen plant there, you can also have synergies to build a chemical cluster. So there is really an alternative to have business of the future located in the same location, in the same port. I think I've passed very quickly through this, but just to highlight here that we are also at Prumo engaging in a license process for offshore areas near Açu coast. As I told you before, the geographical area in front of Açu is one of the three best areas when it comes to offshore wind in Brazil, together with the northeast of Brazil and the very south of Brazil. So we are engaging in a license process, leverage, of course, renewable power generation from region's natural potential, which is very good at this place. So all in all, I want to close my quick presentation to you by saying that Port of Açu is already consolidated, 15 companies installed there, ship-to-ship operations ongoing, the gas-fired power plant ready to generate energy to the grid and support the needs of Brazil in this moment that we have some sort of limitations in the generation of hydroelectrical electricity. Açu is ready and it's full of opportunities to receive investments in these three pillars that I've shared with you. And I want to close here to allow time for questions. I will share this material with the organizers later on so they can distribute openly to you all. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mauro, for the presentation. We will share the presentation. It will be on our website together with the recording of this video. So I'll let Marty now then conduct the Q&A session. If you have any questions for Mauro, please add to the Q&A box, and Marty will be happy to get them answers for you. Thank you.
Okay, everyone, if you have any questions, use the chat function down there at the bottom of the Zoom screen, and we'll collect those questions and get them answered. But while we're doing that, I'll start off with one question. Prumo seems to be advertising a lot of green projects. Do you see any of them conflicting with the oil and gas projects?
Thanks, Marty, for the question. Not at all. I mean, I think these projects will probably coexist. And that is also, and it's also the case in many other parts of the world where some of the energy transition will be actually funded and financed by the oil and gas companies that are becoming energy companies. So you see, for example, we have an MOU with Equinor in solar ventures. We are looking for a partner to develop also an offshore wind park in front of Açu. So all these ventures will actually coexist with the existing oil and gas activities at the port. So I don't see, I actually see a lot of synergies, especially in the logistics side. If you think about an offshore wind park, for example, the logistics needed to support that type of venture is pretty much similar to the supporting vessels that are used for offshore platforms, for example. So I think they are perfectly compatible.
Okay, thanks. Another question would be, you talked about the tank farm that you're building. Is that going to be all for Petrobras oil coming in from the pre-salt fields? Or do you see any of the IOCs, their share of the production going into those tank farms?
As a matter of fact, we already have a lot of different clients using the ship-to-ship terminal at Açu. So Petrobras uses, but Equinor also uses, Shell, Repsol, Galp. So all these big producers in Brazil are already using the terminal, and they are the natural clients of this storage to be built by us at nearby the ship-to-ship terminal. So we actually see it's pretty much open for all the IOCs and the other operators as our terminal is open as well. So as I said before, we are a private port. So of course, if Petrobras, which is a national oil company and has a lot of infrastructure, wants to use it, fine, it will be a client, very welcome. But the other companies are already using our installation. So we expect that we have a mix of different clients using our terminal and tanking and storage facilities.
Okay, thank you. I guess one more question would be about the Brazil onshore. E&P has been working to encourage investment in the onshore, and that's what part of the objective of this webinar series is. But if things really scale up in the onshore, there'll be need for various equipment to be imported and that sort of thing. Does Prumo play any role in trying to facilitate importation, removing restrictions or anything like that?
Yeah, we already have what we call a multi-purpose terminal that exports a lot of cargo, but also imports cargo for the projects that we have in our own area. Bear in mind that the majority of the subsea industry of equipment in Brazil are located at Açu port, and they do import a lot of parts and pieces and feedstock and material through the multi-cargo purpose terminal at Açu. So we have a bonded area with the Internal Revenue Services and customs procedures in place. So it's actually easy to import material through the port of Açu to be able to distribute in different parts of the country. So that is actually already ongoing operations for us.
Okay, thank you. Well, I guess we better move on to our next presentation, Carolina.
Yes, everybody's playing shy. Nobody's adding questions to the Q&A box. So please don't be shy. If you have any questions, please feel free to add to the Q&A box, and we'll make sure to include them on the Q&A sessions that we're preparing after the event. And if you need or if you want to connect with Mauro after the event as well and organize one-on-one meetings with the Porto do Açu to check opportunities for your company, please let us know. I'll add my email to the chat as well, and we will be happy to make the introductions after. So thank you, Mauro, very much for joining us here today and for the presentation, for your participation. Thank you, Marty, for coordinating and moderating the questions. And I would like then now to invite our next speaker, Marcio Felix, CEO at E&P Energy Platform, an innovative integrating energy company dedicated to design, develop, and operate an energy portfolio in Brazil. So Marcio, thanks for joining us. An honor to have you here with us today. The stage is yours.
Thanks, Carolina. Good afternoon here in Brazil. Good morning in Canada. It's really a pleasure to be with you today, especially with our friend Mauro from Prumo and our friend Marcelo from PetroReconf. I guess he's very happy with the IPO, very recent. We are a brand new company, and we try to be inspired by our friends in the industry. So our idea here is in E&P, a game of letters, exploration, production, at the same time means energy platform. We aim at starting from exploration production onshore. We are proud of that, but integrating with the different energy source and building the road, paving the road to a future in the lower carbon economy. Our company is, we'd like to say in some words that we are concentrated, in Brazil. Our activities now, our projects, our headquarters in Rio de Janeiro, have some projects in the neighbor state to the north of Espírito Santo. And we have just acquired gas asset in the state of Bahia, the Tucano Basin, and we have a gas infrastructure project in the state of Sergipe, and they're looking for opportunities. We're studying many other possibilities. I'd say in a few words that we are a company, or a group of companies, small group of companies. Were born in March 10 last year, just in the beginning of the pandemic. We had to adapt ourselves to all these challenging times. And so we are engaged in the integration of different sources of energy based on oil and gas clusters, especially onshore, but offshore as well. And we are focusing on solutions to promote carbon neutrality, to have a combination, a mix, a blend of source of energy that have a zero equation, a neutrality, or even a negative equation. What's our strategy for the energy transition? Is to build in partnerships with different producers of different diversified source of energy. We have, as I will show later on, a team that is diversified and qualified to address this kind of challenge. So integrate several sources of energy is our strategy to get before 2050 a zero carbon equation. So we work to design, to develop, and operate integrated energy projects. We want to be a reference, not a leader or something like this, but a reference in this, in contribute to the world in the energy sector transformation. Our values are, I guess, it's still very important in the world to have respect, innovation, diversity, and prosperity, something that we work on. Our team, we have mature people, very experienced people, and at the same time, very young people. I guess we need something in the meantime. We have in Brazil a lot of very experienced people coming from the oil and gas industry and from the energy sector, but we have at the same time very young people. This is part of the team that is in our headquarters in Rio. We have teams spread in different places, different cities in Brazil and even in other countries. And we are working together in order to build our portfolio and show that's possible to achieve a low carbon economy by integrating different sources of energy. We have an infrastructure project for gas that's connecting the grid of gas of the offshore Rio de Janeiro states and the Espírito Santo states. And this hub is something new that you allow, that you show later on. I guess I have one slide on that. And we are working based on the successful experience a recent successful experience of 3R in the Petro to use our E&P. Of course, we are working in some acquisitions right now, and if you are successful, you'll be a must. We have the need to get more financial solutions, and one potential road is to go to an initial public offer. Maybe through the Brazilian stock market in São Paulo, or even Toronto, or together. We are considering, our company was inspired in Norway and Canada, the way these countries, they merge sustainable issues with oil and gas activities. So it's a huge challenge in the transition time, and we try to learn from this, especially from these countries, how to deal with the transition in the energy sector. In a nutshell, or one slide, I would show you our portfolio. We have here in the left the Hub Gazines. The connection is a point, namely the code center of the operation distribution, and then connected to the existing grid in Espírito Santo, the existing grid, and maybe a potential connect with Porto de Açu or Porto Central in Espírito Santo. Any other is open to different connections, but our project is the blue line in the center of operation distribution that we called COD to make it simple to have this brand. So in the state of Espírito Santo, the right of the north of the state, we have our exploration assets in our production assets today in the Espírito Santo basin onshore, and we have as a matter of fact, not just one discovery, but we have a brand new discovery in 441 block that has been communicated to the regulatory agencies in Brazil, but is still under evaluation. Both are still under evaluation, but we are very proud to get new oil to this mature base. We are just in the process to acquire the E&P, the Brazilian regulatory agents to get the final approvals, and in order to access these two exploratory blocks in the Tucano Basin in the state of Bahia, the north, a little bit to the north of Salvador, the capital of the state of Bahia, and we have a gas discovery there, and we are working to start at the beginning of next year extended well testing in the 3D seismic survey in order to estimate the reserves and the potential, and it's something that we are going to integrate to the grid or to have a power plant connected. Yeah, the same, this slide is a little bit updated, more than the last one. We have a rotation in the Espírito Santo, so the north is to the left. We have 12 exploratory blocks, and the two discoveries are here called Sintonia and Vida. It means life in Portuguese. Was a discovery in May last year, so just in the beginning of the pandemic. So it was a kind of counter name in order to give some good feelings, and this hopefully was a discovery, and we are working to have extended well testing starting August in Vida, and the Sintonia is we are going to have a drill stem test in order to evaluate the discovery in 441. We have some infrastructure in Espírito Santo. We have a gas treatment plant with a capacity of 1.9 million cubic meters a day, connect to the main grid in Brazil, connect to the Gazene, the pipeline, gas pipeline that connects south and northeast of Brazil, southeast and northeast of Brazil, to be more precise. And we have beyond the gas facility, we have a oil and water facility, treatment facility, with a capacity of 25,000 barrels a day of liquids, and regarding oil, 7.5 thousand barrels a day. That's something is much more than we produce there now, but is a very important infrastructure. So we started through Imetame, our partner there, that is the operator. And Imetame is our partner and one of our shareholder. Imetame holds 31% of E&P. And we started October last year to operate this facility following Petrobras. And our production has this increase in this last months in more than 200%, or three times, a little bit more than 3 times more. So is our idea that the hub Gazene is something that we are discussing. We have some good possibilities, but we cannot announce right now. But we are working to make this connection between the Rio de Janeiro state. The position is close to Porto de Açu, but this location is to be more well defined, and depending on the solutions on the Pão de Açúcar and the other facilities, we are working on this and this initiative that will allow that gas can flow from different platforms to different gas treatment plants existing in future gas plants, like the one that Mauro Andrade showed that's a possibility in Açu. So this 2/3 of Brazilian GDP, around 2/3 of Brazilian GDP, is concentrated in southeast of Brazil, the 4 states, the 3 oil and gas states, Espírito Santo, Rio, and São Paulo, and the outside the state of Minas Gerais. So I'm going to the end of my presentation, just to show you at a very brief pictures and numbers, to show you that you have the opportunity to integrate energies in a lower carbon way. And so we would like to have you investing at E&P. We have different ways. We are considering different possibilities. We are open, we are flexible, we are small, but you are starting to escalate to new levels. And I hope to have you on board to be more certain, to be sure that we will have exactly a very low carbon economy solution in this way. So thank you, and Marty, I'm open to the Q&A session. Thank you.
Thank you, Marcio, for your presentation. Very, very informative, and congratulations on everything that you achieved in such a short period, right? Like you're talking about a year there, so congratulations. We have a question coming in, but we will leave the questions after PetroRecôncavo's presentation, so we can have more like a discussion between Marty, Mauro, and Marcelo, Marcio and Marcelo. It's too many M's. It's really hard to. So if you have any questions, please add to the Q&A box, and Marty will integrate them in his own questions as well after PetroRecôncavo's presentation. And again, if you need or if you want to connect with Marcio Felix and learn more about E&P, you can connect directly with him or let us know, and we'll be happy to make the introductions as well. So thank you, Marcio. And without further ado, I would like to invite then for a final presentation, our final project of the day, Marcelo Magalhães. CEO at PetroRecôncavo, who will, PetroRecôncavo is an oil and gas company specialized in the revitalization of mature onshore fields, and is the main independent producer focused on this segment in Brazil. So Marcelo, thank you very much for joining us here. Stage is yours.
Thank you, Carolina. First of all, thank you all very much for the invitation to be here today speaking to all of you about PetroRecôncavo. We are very proud of our history, and as our friend Marcio just mentioned a few minutes ago, we are in fact very happy with the recent news that end up with a successful IPO at the B3 Stock Exchange. It's a pleasure to be here also with Carlos, Nadine, Juliana, Marcio, and Marty, okay? I hope we can show to you guys a little bit of that history, which I think is quite exciting. We are living through a very important, maybe a little late, but still very important transformation process in the Brazilian onshore. And we are trying hard to set PetroRecôncavo as a very important player in this transformation, okay? I have a presentation here. Let me see how I can. Well, again, we have been in business in Brazil for the past 21 years. I think that makes us the long-lasting oil and gas operator in Brazil, second only by Petrobras, okay? We are a very focused company that is focused on onshore mature field operation for both oil and gas, okay? We started here in the state of Bahia in 2000 with a contract for Petrobras in which we have been operating for them 12 concessions here in the Recôncavo Basin for the past 21 years. We have waited a lot for the opportunity that started to happen back in 2016 when Petrobras opened its onshore divesting program. And that has opened the opportunity for us to play in this growth game, which is extremely important for the company and for the market, okay? If you could pass for the next one, please, Caroline. We are located, slide number 3, please. We are located in the two major onshore basins in Brazil, which are the Recôncavo Basin in the state of Bahia. We now operate 17 concessions in this basin, and we have just signed additional 9 concessions for the Miranga cluster as part of the Petrobras divestiture asset. We also have acquired last December the 12 fields that we used to operate for Petrobras in a production sharing contract. In the state of Rio Grande do Norte, we started operations back in December 2019. It was the first asset that was divested by Petrobras in the onshore divestiture program. I believe it's the largest one up to this point. It is 34 concessions, which right now has a production in total of around 9,000 barrels of oil equivalent a day. I'm very pleased to tell everybody that on the 18 months that we have been operating that, on the last available data point in the E&P website, which I think is from April 2021, we have achieved over 80% increase upon the baseline production that we inherited from Petrobras. We're very happy with that because that's exactly what we propose to do. That's how we generate value, not only for our shareholders, but also for the communities and the states and the cities in which we operate, as we generate a lot of taxes coming from our investment, which is huge, and also a very well taken increase in the royalties given the increase in the production itself, okay? Well, I mentioned that the company has one of the longest histories in the Brazilian onshore. This history has started in February 2000, but it has taken several steps, okay? And I think one of the biggest challenge that we had was to be an independent operator in a country that had no previous independent operator, okay? We've learned a lot. Over time, we learned that it was required for us in order to have the flexibility, autonomy, and the cost to develop our fields, to develop a vertically integrated structure in which we perform internally with equipment, people, processes, most of the operations in the well fields, including drilling, workovers. We do all of that internally with our own teams, crews, and processes. And that has a key part of our success. So we started operating, learning how to operate the fields. We started assembling this services structure. And in the end, we learned how to acquire assets from Petrobras, which is quite challenged. The process is a very important process. There are still over 70,000 barrels of oil equivalent to be sold in the Northeast Brazil, just on the onshore fields. But this is not an easy task. This is a process that it takes a long time. We have been investing a lot of people and attention for that over the past 5 years. But I think we, again, have been successful. The company is the company that has invested more money, over $600 million in the acquisition of these 3 clusters. And that has turned us into these 15,000 barrels of oil equivalent a day company with booked reserves over 151 million barrels of oil equivalent. So we are now the largest operation on those 2 mature basins with over 500 employees and 788 million reais in revenue last year, with what I think is a very impressive EBITDA margin of around 60%. Well, that has not only come from the acquisition, but also from the strong track record that we have. And I will ask you, Carolina, to keep passing, because in fact, I have been going through some of these slides here. And I'm now probably on slide number 6. Yes, there's exactly this one that shows the track record of our operation here in the Recôncavo Basin. What you see here in green is the previous operator production. And then after 2000, the decline that was expected to happen in these fields if no more investment was done. We did a lot of investment resulting in this production curve in yellow, with what we expected in the beginning, a very intense, low-hanging fruit that almost doubled the production of the field in the initial 2 to 3 years, followed by a relatively stable curve that is the result of a lot of investment. As we all know, mature fields will decline if you don't invest wisely. And we have done investments in waterflood development, infield drilling, some fracking, always following the price trend to make sure that we have good returns for our investment. In the Portugal District, which is the next slide, it's a more recent track record, but it's also quite impressive in my view. Again, we have achieved about 84% increase in BOE production in the 30 fields that we operate there in the initial 16 to 17 months. That's, again, as expected, a lot of our low-hanging fruit right in the beginning, where we bring a lot of wells back into production. Usually when we take over these fields, because Petrobras has not invested a lot of money on them, has not allocated workover and well service rigs to it, we find a lot of our wells that are out of production. So that's the first thing we do, followed by a more medium to long-term plan for the development that would usually include repressurization of the reservoirs, followed by infill drilling, fracs, and also to the opening of new zones. If you could skip to the next slide, I think that summarizes exactly what our business model is. We are a company that take on underinvested mature onshore fields, and we apply not only our techniques and our development expertise, but also a structure that provides low cost. And when you take all of that together, the results that we see is that we take the initial reserves and we keep creating new reserves over time, which results in a much higher recovery factor for those fields. And in the process of increase the recovery factor, we not only generate a lot more reserves than the initial ones. It's important to highlight here that one of the issues with this divestiture program for Petrobras is that there is not a lot of transparency in the amount of information there is made available to the acquirers in the initial moment. So you're not really able at the initial point to assess if you can or not have access to more reserves. But usually what we do is we develop these additional reserves and also a lot of production with low cost tends to generate a lot of cash flow for our investors. If you could skip to the next slide, I think it highlights here the verticalized operation that we have. That might be an area in which we might eventually have something more concrete to talk with eventual Canadian companies that are willing to invest in Brazil. We do acquire a lot of equipment. We are right now importing several drilling, frac, and workover equipment. We usually do that from North America. We usually use Repetro, which is a system that allows oil and gas company to import equipment for Brazil with tax exemptions. So I think that's an area in which we're going to be doing a lot of business in the US and Canada. Right now, we operate 6 workover rigs, 1 drilling rig, 1 frac unit, and other smaller units, including cementing, acidification, and other services. We also have been investing heavily here in digital transformation process. There is right now essential for us to improve productivity and make sure we keep our costs down. If you could skip to the next slide, I think that's what, in essence, make us, in what we believe, a company very set to be the leader of the development of the onshore market in Brazil. Again, we are in a transformational moment. We intend to lead this transformation and to be the most competitive independent operator in the Brazilian onshore. And that comes from the capabilities that I already mentioned, and also for the core values that we see in this company, including austerity, reliability, resilience, and above all, safety, which is what makes us able to be in business for the last 21 years with a lot of success. If you could skip again for the next one, I think we are a company that tries to attract the best talents in the industry. We have a huge competition here on Marcio Felix, who's a guy that works a lot with the young people. So we compete for essentially for talent. I think that one thing that I learned from the oil and gas industry is that there are a lot more cooperation between the companies than competition itself. But if there is one thing that we compete is eventually talent and capital. But we are preparing this company, attracting, again, as Marshall likes, a lot of young people. I'm very proud to the fact that I started here as the CEO 13 years ago. And we have raised the number of employees of this company from 76 to over 530. And in the process, we create a lot of opportunities for a lot of young and very capable people, most of them locals from the Brazilian Northeast. I'm talking a little bit about the near future. I'm going to show you in the next slide, if you could skip to it, what is already in process of being selling by Petrobras in the divestiture process. Petrobras is selling essentially every seeing that they have both an upstream, midstream, and downstream in the Espírito Santo and Northeast Brazil. The remaining assets are much larger than the ones that were already divested. So the opportunity and the growth of opportunities is still to come. There are also more complex assets that not only includes upstream oil producing fields, but also in many cases refineries, gas plants, pipelines, and even maritime terminals. PetroReconcavo is competing in most of these processes. We believe we are very competitive. I think the IPO has allowed us to be even more competitive as it helped us change the structure of capital and the access to the capital markets. If you could pass on to the new one, I'm almost done here. I would have to say that we have throughout our history here a huge support from our founding shareholders. Our recent IPO offering was 100% primary, so none of them has exited the company. Right, the contrary, they are participating in the company. They have been joined by over 2,000 new shareholders from funds, institutions, and people. Okay, so we still have a lot to deliver on them. If we could keep going and going to the next one, our founding shareholders are an American group called Petro Santander, who operates in the United States, Colombia, Romania, and Brazil, and two local groups called Petrobras, which is essentially a service and rig operating company that has been providing services for Petrobras for over 40 years, and Opportunity Management, which is a wealth management company that manages funds in Brazil. Again, around 29% of our shareholder base went into the free float with the IPO. We also now have a larger board of directors that was recent joined by 3 independent board members. And if you look at their experience, we have several people here with C-level experience in Brazil, in Asia, in Europe, in the United States. And they have been extremely helpful for us in continuing the process to make this company a leader company in the Brazilian onshore. The next one talks a little bit about management, in addition to myself, who have been here for the past 13 years. Most of our senior management people is highly committed to the company. The least experienced one here has, I believe, 9 years within the company. Some of them, the ones that you see in the second line, very young people that have many of them joined the company as trainees 8, 9, 10 years ago. The company runs a trainee program continuously for the past 11 years and tries to continue to attract young, capable, and very nice people who likes to work in oil and gas. And I mean nice to work in oil and gas because it might seem a little even odd for people in the northern hemisphere who has been living with this industry for almost 2 centuries. But here in Brazil, what we're seeing here is something completely new. And particularly in the onshore, and I will ask you to skip 2 slides to where you have a map of the Brazilian Northeast in the next one. Most of the onshore producing fields in Brazil are in the countryside of Northeast Brazil, which is the purest areas of the country. You see here in these red shaded areas, most of these municipalities are in the lowest quartile of the Human Development Index. The oil and gas industry here represents an opportunity for job creation, value creation, job creation. And as these independent companies come on board, investing back and extending the life of these fields, we continue to offer the people that live here opportunities for employment and to have a better life. So I think that in the social aspect, the investment in oil and gas in the onshore Brazil, it's extremely positive. And I will even tell you that the environmental aspect as well. First, because most of the footprint of the oil and gas in these areas are already set. You have thousands of wells already drilled. Most of the facilities are oversized because they had processed in the past a lot more fluid and oil than they do now. So there's not a lot of investment that would cause immediate environmental damage. Just the contrary, the regulators here are requiring from us, the new companies, the companies that are acquiring those concessions, to make sure at the moment that we sign the acquisition to have a real guarantee in form of a escrow account that is going to be deducting a value from each barrel of oil or cubic meter of gas that we sell in order to constitute a fund that will be used under E&P supervision to decommission these fields and make sure that any environmental impact that was made by Petrobras or by the new operators throughout the decades in which these fields have been operating will be mitigated in the future with the safety and assurance of a proper decommission of wells and facilities. I think that's what I have to say here. It will be a pleasure to answer your questions and to debate with my friend Marcio Felix. So thank you all very much once again.
Thank you, Marcelo. Very, very good presentation. Thanks for the overview. So now for the questions, I'll have a couple questions in the Q&A. Marty has a couple questions as well for our panelists. I would like to invite Marcio Felix to join us here as well again. And Marty is the Vice President of CGEF, the Canadian Global Exploration Forum. It's well known in Brazil. And oh, Mauro is still here as well. So this is great. I'll let you guys perform the Q&A and have a great conversation on opportunities. Thank you.
Well, hello again. I would like to pose this first question to Mr. Felix. I'll give Marcelo a rest for a minute. So what we've heard today are some marvelous opportunities, a lot of increase in activity in Brazil. And even today, there's an article in the APG Explorer expounding the great attributes of onshore Brazil. And this has come to pass for a number of reasons, but one is because of some of the regime changes that E&P has made. So the question to Mr. Felix is, what additional changes in E&P regulations for the Brazilian onshore would you like to see to make the onshore even more attractive to investors?
Thanks, Marty. First of all, I should acknowledge E&P and the Brazilian government, all the changes that have been promoted. Repetro was mentioned by Marcelo, my friend Marcelo. Repetro allows a lot of, it's important to reopen the market of Brazil, the renewal of Repetro, the new Repetro. The local content was, I guess, successfully addressed. Has not been talked about anything about any claim about local content was an issue. Unitization was a very important issue. Unitization patterns, bid rounds. We have every year different bid rounds. The open acreage initiative, some initiative that came with the pandemic that are still under discussion. But I guess what else could get to ask for E&P or for the Brazilian government is to expedite, to make more simple the process. A lot of paperwork, a lot of you are now in a digital mode, but there's a lot of paperwork and a lot of time, a time-consuming process, especially for how to stimulate exploration in different ways. Just very few companies are performing exploration. The third round of open acreage will have Parecis Basin for the first time. Is the Midwest of Brazil, is a great agribusiness-based area. So we we have the opportunity to merge gas and biofuels there. And, but there's a lot of work. There's, so I'd say that to make it simple, the process, to make the website more friendly. There's a lot of opportunities. So I need some digital transformation should be the point.
Okay, I understand that very well, and people who've operated in Brazil and other places understand that as well. Okay, we'll put Marcelo on the spot here now. First off, congratulations on all the amazing things that your company has done. In your presentation, you talked about what's required to have this kind of success. So that caused me to start thinking about what goods and services or technology are lacking in the Brazil onshore sector. So I'll let you talk about that for a moment.
Thank you, Marty. Well, it's not about really technology. I think we have access to the technology, all the technology that we need. I think it's more about the methodology. There are very few companies here, right the opposite of Marcio just mentioned. And I think it's good to have the plurality, not only plurality of players, but plurality of a strategy. So we are a company that is not focused on exploration. We are focused on producing proved reserves with a maximum efficiency and lowest cost. What we learned in these last 21 years here is because you have only one big acquirer of products and services in Brazil in the whole history of oil and gas called Petrobras, the service area here has never really fully developed, particularly not developed on both the productivity and the safety sides of the business. So we learned at some point that if we want to be successful, we would need to build our own internal services capabilities that we try to do, focusing on safety, but essentially focus on productivity, okay? And I will give you an example. When we first start drilling here in the Recôncavo Basin, which is a basin that has been drilled by the last 70 years, okay? And Marcio probably has drilled some wells here in his times on Petrobras. When we first started drilling here, to drill a well with, let's say, 1,200 meters of depth in the Recôncavo Basin would take Petrobras a month. We started by taking 10 to 14 days. Right now, we drill this in about 6 days, okay? Between start the bit and complete the well for production. So that's something that we have been developing internally, slowly but consistency. And that is what I believe makes us differentiated, particularly on the autonomy, flexibility, and the cost that is required to perform the thousands of interventions, workover interventions, frac interventions, drilling interventions that are required in those mature fields to get production up fast and cheaper.
Okay, thank you. You've hit a lot of important points right there that I think the audience can relate to. Let's go back to Marcio. In some parts of the world, access to capital for oil and gas projects has been a problem. So what can you say about the availability of capital for oil and gas projects in the Brazilian market?
Brazil has unique features, and on behalf of Marcelo, I would say that he could answer better this question, but he has just a few days a very successful IPO in Brazilian stock market, B3 in São Paulo, but with some international agents working on that. So we are getting money for onshore, I'd say, for onshore partners we can get money in Brazil, but there are some international investors. So private equity, we are facing, we are being approached by different investors from Brazil and from other countries, aiming at understanding better this moment. Of course, energy transition is an issue, but oil and especially gas will be key in the energy in the transition time. And so, if we blend or have a successful model like Petroreconcavo has for more than 20 years, since the year 2000. They are pioneers in Brazil. They are a kind of Swiss watch working, and then as they can get money, 3R gets some money now from IPO. It's very, very new company. And so it's amazing that our first business was participating in a divestment project of Petrobras, a small one, the Lagoa Parda cluster. And we could raise the money. We tried to raise the money, part of the money that our shareholders needed to complete. Part of the money we get in a regional bank for agribusiness. So for the best condition we get in this kind of bank. We tried to approach big institutions, but it was unbelievable, the interest rates and the conditions. And so there are solutions because there is more money available than good projects. So we need to make this connection. In Brazil, there is still money. In the exchange rate now around $1 US, 5 reais, still very attractive too. And of course, you, Martin, know Brazil for a long time. You know that you have highs and lows. And this is a time it's cheaper for you to invest in Brazil than invest in Canada with the same money. But there are different risks, But of course, now is the time. We were able to acquire assets last year because the price was very low and everybody didn't believe that the Brent could raise to 72 how it is today. So this is we need to work with the financial market in order to get money. So we are trying to have more assets in some big projects. We have the new challenge, but for the small ones, I guess it's not so difficult to get money in Brazil.
Okay, thank you.
My pleasure.
So Dr. Marcelo, you've talked a lot about the acquisition of these Petrobras assets. What experiences or advice would you like to share with the audience about your dealings with the Petrobras divestment process?
I think you have to have a lot of patience. Okay, we've been through that for the past 5 years, and particular for foreigners, it's sometimes a little bit tough to understand the time and the rules. The rules are somehow odd in many aspects. It's a process in which you have several steps. You have a non-binding bid, then you have a binding bid. Depending on how this binding winning bid negotiates with Petrobras, there might be a change in contract that will trigger a rebid. So there might be 3 or 4 parts of the process. Not to mention that at some point, maybe back in 2017, the Federal Auditing Court order the process to start back from the scratch when some of the fields were already being in the process of being sold. So it's tricky, but we are particularly, again, being in business here for the past 21 years, I think we are pretty resilient. So if you want to come to Brazil, we need to be resilient. I think the opportunities here are very good, but it takes time. It brings in some bureaucracy, okay, both from the regulators' perspective and even from Petrobras' perspective. But it's improving. I'm very optimistic, Marty, that we are almost close to the end of this divestiture process from Petrobras. We will likely get out of it with several independent companies. Then I think it's naturally that we're going to have some kind of M&A consolidation. So it's the normal dynamics of the market, which after many, many years, I think we are almost getting there. The fields are heavily underinvested by Petrobras, so it offers good upsides, but at the same time, it offers great risks on the transaction itself. So we need to have the expertise to develop the upside and also have the expertise to manage the risks that are associated. And I think that in the end, it's all about not paying too much, yeah. And that is, it's tricky because there are many new competitors, companies with all different sizes, all different sources of investing. It's difficult, but it's probably rewarding as well.
Okay, thank you. Well, I think we've run out of time here. I wanted to reiterate for the audience, if you have any questions, send those to Carolina, and we'll get those answered by the panelists. And any other questions I've taken on here that I wasn't able to get to, we'll get the panelists to give an answer to those in private as well. So thank you for letting me do the Q&A session, Carolina, and turn it back to you.
Thank you, Marty. No, thank you for doing the Q&A session. You're the expert here, so I appreciate you jumping in and having this great conversation with Marcio, Mauro, and Marcelo. I think this was a very good discussion. Again, as we can see, lots of opportunities in the Brazilian oil and gas sector for Canadian companies. This is just the beginning, so please, if there's any, again, as Martin mentioned, we will send your questions that are in the Q&A box to the speakers, and we'll connect with you for the answers later. On behalf of the Brazil-Canada Chamber of Commerce then and the organizing committees of this event, I'd like to thank Nadine Lopes from Global Affairs Canada, the Trade Commissioner Service in Rio, Carlos Padilha from Apex Brazil, Juliana from ONIP, and of course, Marty here from CJEF and their group for the partnership in putting this event together. As I mentioned, this is the second of 3 webinars that will showcase opportunities in the Brazilian oil and gas sector. So stay tuned as there's more to come. We still don't have the date for the next one, but the next one we will be focused on the oil and gas supply chain. So lots of opportunities for Canadian suppliers looking to enter the Brazilian market. So thank you again, Marcio, Mauro, and Marcelo, for taking time of your busy schedule to be here with us. Very informative discussion. And I would like as well to thank, of course, the BCC sponsors for the support, Vale Base Metals, Export Development Canada, Brookfield, Sescombarrier, Lundin Mining, and the Toronto Stock Exchange and TSX Ventures for support. A reminder for our attendees, if you wanted to connect one-on-one with our speakers today, please let us know. Send me an email, and I'm happy to facilitate the introductions. Thank you, everyone, for joining. I'm just asking Nadine to join. I'm going to take a picture of, since we're here, with all the speakers of the event. So if the panelists can all turn their cameras on, let's do a quick smile, everyone, a quick picture of the session. And thanks again, everyone, for joining. Thank you for the attendees for being here today. And take care, stay safe, and I'll see you all very soon. Thank you very much.